Hello, my name is Mark. I am an illustrator, an animator, an award-winning journalist, Grammy-nominated musician, father, grandfather, a world traveller, a drone photography enthusiast, and a resident Portlandian. As an agricultural advisor to Her Majesty's government, my father travelled extensively for 2 to 4 year projects in the tropics, and the family followed. We lived in Nigeria, Kenya, Jamaica, Nicaragua, Zambia, Bolivia, Kenya, Burma, Kenya. Yes, we lived in Kenya a few times. My brother was born there. Then at 10 they shipped me off to boarding school. Yes, exactly like Hogwarts, except without the magic. Instead, I revelled in the real magic of global travel and the pleasures of being an unaccompanied miner during the 70s and 80s when people dressed up to fly, and travelled 3 times a year to wherever exotic locale my parents lived. Oh my God, the stories I have to tell, like the time I shut down a 747 with my Swiss Army knife. I could also do a whole series of stories about my mother. She put each household together all over the world, while my father immediately worked on projects in the field, out in the bush particularly. My earliest memories are living the movie Born Free, my father a zoologist in the Rift Valley, my mother coordinating everything else and adapting to many cultures and mastering 4 languages, even Swahili. I moved to Atlanta in 1984, lived there for 15 years, and then moved to the Missouri Ozarks, off the grid, in the middle of a remote forest. A couple of years in St. Louis, and then off to Portland, Oregon, in 2005. It's been 35 years since I've been in America, and I can attest to its diversity and culture across states. Between Georgia, Missouri, Oregon, Washington, and California states, you may as well be in different countries. So it's very difficult to explain to anyone outside of America that what they see in the media is not a true representation of the diversity of this country. But then that's also true of any country. We still generically profile countries just the same way as we do with states. Of course, the UK is richly diverse, especially London. There's probably no more cosmopolitan place on the planet. But I found myself drawn to the American culture when I travelled through it on a regular basis when I was travelling to Latin America as a kid. I also found as a child I listened more to American and Latin and world music, which at the time I thought came from America. And then for most of my life I've been a spectator to politics, planting myself firmly on the fence, listening and absorbing all points of view. However, the past few years I've been drawn to needing to make my voice count, coupled with suggestions from immigration officers as I've travelled through the US. I think the time could not be more right to get the US citizenship, or as they call it, naturalization. It's about $800 to $1,000 for someone like me who's been here legally for so long, married an American, but both kids were born here. A quick search online yielded a lot of links to warnings of much higher costs for those who don't have those pre-existing conditions or don't look Norwegian. I would have dual nationality, which turns out not to be an actual thing you have to be officially. It just means you have more than one passport. This can happen if you have kids in other countries or different marriages or different relatives depending on the country. It really doesn't matter how many passports you have. In my case, I just had to make sure that I arrive in the US or the UK and just show one passport. This was explained to me by several Border Patrol officers and immigration officers. Using a British passport or American passport has some advantages in some countries. It's not really a question of loyalty at this point for me. It does beg the question, however, for my brother, who was born in Kenya and now he's living in America and he's also considering becoming a citizen. Will that make him African American? Also, my 18-year-old son can vote, so I'm looking forward to registering together. I'll probably vote as a polyamorous, Quaker Buddhist Muslim Republican. I can do that, right? My son pointed out in high school that his dad is an immigrant. I'm interested to see how others perceive the word immigrant during my citizenship journey, since I'm not Norwegian. My first job after college, I worked on a movie called Life Force. Its working title was Space Vampires, during which I was introduced to Patrick Stewart, even then very revered on set. Anyway, he recently became a citizen so that he too could vote, and finally take command of the new Space Force. Stewart and Ian McShane and Ian McKellen are the real thing and have retained their Shakespearean accents, though I've heard McShane slip between accents in the Pinewood Bar in Boringwood. But unfortunately, Brits like John Oliver, Eddie Izzard and Patrick Stewart make people believe that all Brits are clever. They're not. Most other American TV Brit accents are BS, especially mine. Stuart Varnett and Piers Morgan, to name just a few misleading posh accents. My accent is buggered up. In the US, it's mistaken for intelligence. When I'm in the UK, everyone says I sound like a Yank. Moving on, I look forward to imparting my wisdom along this adventure, but also learning together. We'll keep the subject going, but also start covering other subjects, more travel. Onward. Bye.